Hello, my name is Phil Burst. Welcome to the Founders 15 podcast. I'm here today with Jenson Brook, who is the managing director of Novus Capital and one of the key founding members of the Britain's Got Startups initiative, which I'm super excited about. We're 15 minutes. Let's get started. Jenson, I'm going to start with a provocative question.
Yeah.
Should founders pay to pitch? Discuss.
Yes and no. I don't believe in an upfront payment for pitching pitching events. The reason for that, it gives the wrong kind of feel to the event. If I'm paying £2,000 to go pitch at an event, I don't feel like that's going to be beneficial to me. I'd much rather spend that on an investor campaign with a consultant or understanding the best route to market. At Britain's Got Startups, we typically pay as a success fee. So if we help you raise funding, then we normally ask for a success fee of that. The reason why I introduced that was it gives us a lot more kind of push to get the right people there. I spend the best part of 4 weeks prior to putting all these together, organising all the events, as well as our team. It's not just me. So we want to make sure the right companies are investing to the right people, so then we can obviously make something out of it. As you could probably imagine, it's very expensive running around the country trying to get companies to firstly apply and then to pitch and then to get investors there at the same time. Especially getting London investors out into the regions, it's even more of a task. But I'm supported very well by Chris Lowe from Notwicks, who is the Pied Piper of investors from London to the regions. But no, to answer your question, I think there is an element where paying for pitching as a success fee is useful. It motivates both parties. Paying up front, no, I just don't believe that that is something that a characteristic should have in an event.
Yeah, I've seen so much debate on LinkedIn in recent weeks. And for anyone listening to this later, this is sort of April 2024. There's been quite a hot debate going on online about paying to pitch and the pros and cons. And I'll be honest, I'm kind of in the middle. I think, for the right opportunity, if you say I can pitch to Sequoia, I might be happy to give you a couple of grand to do that. There's sort of a balance here, respectively, between the different levels. And I think a lot of the times it depends on who's in the room, as you absolutely say, Jenson. So it's I don't see it as a straightforward yes or no. But let me kind of loop back a couple of seconds, just very briefly. What sort of success fee would you typically expect to pay if you're a founder at these types of pitching events? What would be sort of a typical fee you would look to recoup?
So we typically do 4 to 5% with companies that kind of come through Britain's Got Startups. I've seen investor relations consultants go up to 7, 8%. I've seen some other events do 2, 3%. But the way that the kind of the thesis that we wanted to bring to Britain's Got Startups is we want the founders to understand that we'll be working very hard for them. That's where the 4 to 5% comes from. But also we make the investors aware that we will be also looking successfully. So everyone understands it's a cyclical process. We're the ones bringing people together. It's not just for investment with Britain's Got Startups. It's also for to bring the regional platform. I'm about to have the postman ring the doorbell. Thank you. Apologies about that. I think it's normally 4 to 5% that we do. I've seen it go up to 8%, down to 2% in certain cases. But it motivates the right people, I think. And coming back to your question around, there's been a large debate. I think in different regions, there's very kind of big characters. And as I mentioned before, Phil, I think it gets quite cliquey in certain areas. So I think having someone come in like Britain's Got Startups or other event series that can come into different regions and mix it up and bring different people in, I think it brings different ideas. It brings more collaboration. Some founders are sometimes scared to pitch at these events because they know the type of people that are going to be there. I would prefer to pitch to a room full of strangers rather than to the clique of the region, if that makes sense. But hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, it really does. And it brings me on to something I was talking to Johnny Clark about a few weeks
Yeah.
ago we recorded on this podcast. And he was talking about the challenges with kind of developing an ecosystem within a region or within a country to encourage, startups to grow and thrive. And I think one of the things that I deeply respect about what you guys are doing with Britain's Got Startups is you're creating another space for founders to put themselves out there. You're creating another space, particularly in the regions. I know it sort of started in the north,
Yeah.
to sort of democratize fundraising a little bit and perhaps provide a little bit more exposure to some of those sort of underrepresented founders.
Yeah.
What's been your experience in the last 12 months? What sort of founders get involved in the cohort? What sort of stories have you got that sort of you could share that maybe of people that perhaps wouldn't have got that exposure?
So Britain's Got Startups rolled out of pilot event that we did last June, which was posed as the Northern Investment Event. You're quite right. It kind of came from the north because I am Northern. It was a brainchild of mine and Chris Lowe's. Chris Lowe being from Notwicks. And we just wanted to bring the pitch style events that happen in London, that Chris does in London through Notwicks to the north, because we haven't really seen anything similar where we just bring the best people possible into one room, 12 to 16 pitches on the day, lots of networking. Let's see what happens. So that went really well. We had 16 businesses pitch, learned a lot from it. We had a nice community of founders that, as far as I'm aware, they're still talking to this day. We had founders investing into other founders.
Wow.
We had quite a lot of investment term sheets from that day. I think 16 businesses pitched. We got, I think, 6 to 8 term sheets from that event. Again,
Wow.
we didn't track as much as we did then how much investment came from it. However, this is the proof in the pudding to kind of roll it into, and for me really to invest the money into the next stage of Britain's Got Startups. So in terms of some stories, again, we typically see the most noticeable companies applying. So normally in the north, we all know that there's various companies that are hot on investors' lips. You have quite good social media influencers in certain
Mm.
cases that you see quite a lot. So it was nice to see those names come through. But we also had a really good diversity in terms of age. We had some people that were pitching that were well into their 60s, 70s. We just experienced that down in Southwest. We've got kind of university students that are kind of 19, 20, really getting into entrepreneurship, getting onto different programs. So that was a really nice thing to see with
Mm.
bandwidth of age. Um, and then in terms of the types of companies, they're all really tech enabled. So we are seeing a big push on, because that's the most investable part. But I think coming back to you mentioning Johnny and kind of Liverpool, I haven't had the pleasure of meeting Johnny. I think we've introduced it once or twice, but what he's doing for that Liverpool City region, as well as Claire Lewis at Baltic, Mo and Claire at Baltic, it really seems to be putting Liverpool and the Northwest more and more on the map.
Yeah.
Uh, and with Britain's Got Startups, we're hoping to do that more for regions. Wales obviously has a great representation. Scotland is, Northern Ireland as well. But if we can hopefully collaborate the regions together, where the 65% of high growth companies exist, but they only receive 50% of the equity that's raised in the UK, and we can make that closer and closer, then I think we would be more of a power against London. Again, it's always north versus south. I'm northern myself, lived in London for 7 years. So
Yeah. I'm the same. I lived in London for university, and the whole Game of Thrones analogy comes to mind
yeah.
whenever I think of the North-South divide and the
Yeah.
beautiful sunny shores of like the South in Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Is very much where I found myself, on Weymouth Beach when I was 21, thinking, why do I live in the North? It's really cold up there.
Yeah.
But I'm back in the north, and I couldn't agree more. I think there's so much more work to be done in the northern cities, particularly Liverpool, Manchester, Leeds, Newcastle, before we sort of go further north of the border to Scotland, to sort of build the ecosystem to kind of champion early stage startups and support them. And I think it's a delicate balance, isn't it? We have to help them get investment because we have to help them grow, because we need those success stories. We need those big exits that go on to Crunch, not Crunch, go into all the big kind of tech Crunch,
Yeah, Crunchbase, all these.
Crunchbase, etc.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need them, don't we, to kind of to say that we've got this hotbed, this startup incubator system. And I think what you're doing at Britain's Got Startups is contributing to that. And I think that is absolutely a social impact initiative as much as it is a commercial initiative. What's the next steps? Where do you think the next 2 or 3 years sit for Britain's Got Startups? What would you like to see happen with you and with the sector at large?
I think the problems with the sector at the moment is you've got pre-seed businesses and then you've got Series A businesses, and we know that the majority of the companies based in the regions are in between.
Yeah.
To be a slight black hole of what do I do next? Do I look at institutional? Do I look at trying to do another round? Do I need to put more money in? Do I need to show more traction? I think what I would love to do is to educate around what that black hole is. So it's normally going from pre-seed to seed to Series A. what type of investors normally are in that remit. We
Mhm.
see a lot of investors saying you're too small or you're not where we need you to be. You've then got pre-seed where it's normally angels. Have you got angels in your network? What is an angel? Where do you
Mhm.
find angels? And especially in the regions, a lot more spread out. In London, obviously incredibly concentrated. I heard a story the other day of a founder walking into a pub and he came across four angels and three of them invested into his company.
Oh
So
my God.
you obviously don't get that in the. I'm originally from Wakefield. You can't walk into a Wakefield pub. You probably get glassed more than get a check. But
Yeah.
um, long story short, I think we want to close that black hole into an education piece, but also bring the types of investors that would normally invest into that area into the different regions. Um, and I think there's a really important piece about, like you said, it's more spotlighting. It's more, yes, there's these big unicorn stories in Manchester, or there's these big, look how well this Newcastle-based business has done.
Mhm.
But I think it'll be strength in numbers rather than that one shining light. So part of what we're doing in Britain's Got Startups is this platform of these 12 amazing businesses, and we want to showcase them to the rest of the UK. We'll be doing PR elements. There'll be similar kind of forecasts forums like this where we want to do podcasts. We want to push them into different other events. So I think next steps will be is to solidify Britain's Got Startups brand,
Mhm.
which we're going to try and do at the moment. We'll then be securing bigger partners next year. We're very lucky to be supported by Abstract Group and Vested, as
Oh,
well as
cool.
Novus. I have put quite a bit of money into this to try and get it off the ground. But I think having some more household names will attract people into that remit. Um, I think it's education. I think that's the main
Mm.
point to get
Yeah.
at. It's really showing companies that this is what government funding can do. So grants, R&D tax reliefs, patent box. This is what investors want to see if you want to raise equity funding. And then it's everything else. So have you looked at debt? Have you looked at all these other parts? It's just that education piece.
Yeah, and I know Novus Capital obviously is there to sort of be that intermediary between founders and startups and accessing various different types of sort of capital to help them scale.
Yeah.
And I think education plays a very, very important key in that. I know that what you do, and I've seen some of the stuff you post on LinkedIn and with Britain's Got Startup, it is based around education. I also think that sort of following on from that point around the accelerators,
Yeah.
particularly Baltic Ventures in Liverpool have got the accelerator program, which gives 10 to 12 companies a 50 grand cash injection in exchange
Yeah.
for equity and then showcase them over a 6 month period. I think that's vastly important. But I just have to take a pause and Jenson and say you're absolutely bang on. I think the angel community in the north is smaller, but it's there, and you can access 50 to 100 grand to get your idea off the ground. I
Yeah.
think there's the Series A community. There's plenty of investors in the north that will give you 2 million quid, but in
Yeah.
that 250 to 1 million bracket where you've got too much traction or not enough traction, it really is a black hole. And
Yeah.
I'm working with a number of founders right now who are in that spot, and the ridiculous thing is they've got these growth models, these growth engines, these validated models that say if you give us 1 million, we'll give you 5 million back.
Yeah.
But the VCs won't risk it,
Yeah.
and it's a problem, isn't it? It's a real problem.
It is. It's the risk appetite, and again, we put together quite a detailed data report after BGS in Manchester. We worked with Daniel Sorko at ShipShape,
Oh yeah.
and he put some great data together about kind of the amount of money that is raised in London in comparison to regions of the north. So, on average, if you're a revenue generating business, you typically look to raise about 1.66 million in London. But typically in the north, you would be revenue generating and looking to raise 1.1, 1.2 million. So you typically are getting a revenue generating business to invest into at an earlier stage who are raising 29% less than London business. So there's some quite cool data which I can share with you as well as in startups in the north normally plan to sell 23% of their equity round in comparison to London where they sell 19%.
Wow.
For every pound of revenue that a northern business generates, they normally, sorry, every pound of investment that a northern, let me just try and word this properly because it is very weirdly put. So the average capital sought per £1 of revenue in the north is £37 in comparison to London, where they're looking for £44 per pound of revenue in
Right.
terms of investment. So yeah, all data points towards regional businesses being a better investment overall. And I think if we can improve education, improve the understanding and platform that these are the showcase of businesses in the north, south,
Mhm.
west, southeast, Wales, Northern Ireland, Scotland, east of England, all these parts, and hopefully we're going to attract those investors to the area. Also,
Mhm.
regional angel investors are typically exited founders, and the English and American culture is very different. So UK successful people normally sell a business, and let's say 70% of them then put the feet up and they've done what they needed to do and are now putting the feet up. With American culture, it's different. It's let's go again, let's go again, let's go again, let's go again. And that's where you see that accumulation of wealth and entrepreneurship over there compared to here. But,
Mm.
but yeah,
There's so many challenges that, it's not just, I mean, go back a step, but, if you've got a local business, say a taxi service or a restaurant in London, you kind of expect a higher valuation because there's higher footfall, there's higher rates, there's higher margins. I kind of get that. But for lots of the founders I work with, I think you work with, they're all tech enabled, that either national or international reach. It doesn't
yeah.
really make any sense. It's purely a psychological kind of risk profiling thing, which it feels a bit unfair if the business is not a local business.
Yeah, I
So
think that also translates into kind of male and female founders as well, as in
yeah,
again, all the data points towards if you've got a regionally based female founder, there'll be a lot safer investment compared to a male London-based founder. But
wow,
it's just because of the proportion of what the difference could be. And again, I'm sure there's data towards kind of ethnicities, and obviously the male female has been quite a big piece over the past couple of years, especially with the Financial Promotions Act that was coming into place at the end of January, which kind of increased the amount of money had to be regarded as a sophisticated investor or high net worth, which
yeah,
means less angels, which means that the bigger proportion of people that fell out of that were female. Uh,
mm,
I know that Dom Hallis at Startup Coalition, and I knew there was a couple of others that really campaigned for that to be taken back. So that's apparently going to be coming into place as well. So yeah, it's an interesting landscape, but again, I think the more people with British startups, Baltic Ventures has done amazing things for the Northwest, and hopefully there'll be more people like that that can then replicate in different parts of the country.
definitely.
And see better regional businesses coming through and be more successful, really.
Definitely, yeah. And I'm conscious we're at the end of our time, but I'd just like to get your final thoughts, Jensen, on having sort of been through that Britain's Got Startup journey and seen all these different types of companies pitch, just as sort of in as succinctly as possible. What do you think are the top three things that founders should be aware of or do when they are pitching in person at these sorts of events?
I think the top one that's come out over the past 12 months is understanding that exit strategy. So you need to put yourself in the investor's shoes. What are they wanting to do from investing into you? They want to pull their money out potentially in 3 to 5 years. Is that the right investor that you've got in the room or you're in front of? Is it someone that wants a longer investment? Is it someone that's going to add a bit more than just money? Are they going to be a mentor? Are they going to be opening commercial doors? So I think understanding the exit strategy and the people you're kind of pitching to is really, really important. Um, Something that's really been highlighted is the quality of someone's deck obviously does not correspond to the quality of their pitch. We've had decks that are fantastic and we're like, these are brilliant. And then they've come in and there's not passion there. It
Mm,
doesn't feel like they really want to be, but that might be a confidence thing. That might be more practice. That might be, but then we've had it on the other end of the scale where we've had a black and white pitch. It looks like a great investment, but we haven't seen the quality that we want in a pitch deck. We brought them through to the semi-finals and they've wowed everyone. Best company by far. So I think it's weighing up, making sure your deck gives enough information off. It's aesthetically pleasing. People like looking at nice things. So if you've got something there that would be nice, that'd be great. And then practice and practice and practice for pitching. It's not for everyone. We know that. If there's someone better in your businesses that you could hand that off to that can still give the passion that you want, then do it. We do see a lot of companies that founders are leading the company. They need to be doing it. It's not
mm,
always the case. We've seen companies hand it off to their chief commercial officer. We've seen this operations people kind of really step in and deliver it for the CEO's vision. So I think that's the second thing. And third thing is probably around making sure you've made the most out of what's currently available. You've got
Mm.
the British Business Bank that gives startup loans to companies. You've got likes of Innovate UK grants, incredibly competitive, don't get me wrong, but you're still trying. You're still looking at different methods. You've got R&D tax relief, you've got bootstrapping, you've got all these different elements that can really lead you to being more investable. So yeah, they're the three areas that I'll probably focus on.
You know what, Jensen, I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and thank you again for your time. We could probably carry on for another 45 minutes, and we
Yeah,
probably will do after we wrap up now.
I didn't realize
Um,
it was 15.
I think we're slightly over 15, but that's life.
Yeah.
That's life. That's the startup life. Jensen, thanks very much for your time. If people want to reach out to you and say hi or learn more about Novus Capital or Britain's Got Startups, how do they go about doing that?
LinkedIn's probably the best option. But also, if they do want to contact me via email, I'm happy to send me email if that's all right. So it's jbrook@novus-capital.com.
Brilliant. Jensen, thank you very much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. Have a great day.
Thanks, Phil. Cheers.